you, Minister. We'll go to Senator Simons and then Senator Klein. Senator Simons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, I had the privilege of visiting the Edmonton Institution for Women last month in the company of Senator Pate, where I was shocked to learn. I mean, I knew that Indigenous women were overrepresented in the correctional system, but 70% of the residents of the Edmonton Institution for Women are Indigenous. Senator Pate and I also met with a number of women who expressed to us that they had accepted guilty pleas to lesser offenses because of fear of being found guilty of a crime with a very strict mandatory minimum sentence. I'm really concerned, though, that this bill, which eliminates only a small percentage of those mandatory minimum sentences that have already been deemed unconstitutional by Canada's courts, is not going to do nearly enough to reduce the overrepresentation of Indigenous women in facilities like the one in Edmonton. I'm wondering, can you share me where your confidence comes from that the cherry-picked offenses that you have chosen will actually have a substantive difference to the rates of incarceration of Indigenous peoples?
Thank you, Senator Simons. Good to see you again. I certainly share that horror of seeing the rate of incarceration, particularly of Indigenous women. The drug offenses in particular, and the elimination of the minimum mandatory penalties. As I said, 75% of the minimum mandatory penalties that lead to incarceration in a federal institution are these drug offenses. So yes, it's 21, but it's 21 pretty important offenses. And in particular, the drug offenses are ones that touch those Indigenous women in particular. A lot of those cases are again, cases of problem. The Sharma case is paradigmatic in that regard. Problematic addiction, single mother, person needs to put bread on the table. Indigenous woman sells some of her prescription medication on the side, gets caught. There are other permutations and combinations, but that person ends up with a minimum mandatory. The other thing in your question that's critically important, I mentioned, is the distortion that the minimum mandatory penalty, existence of minimum mandatory penalties cause in the system.
I mean, they compel
that's right.
They compel people to confess for fear of
that's right.
a disproportionate
and
sentence.
The plea bargaining that happens, the delays that happen, because then there may be a charter challenge as another strategy. It not only gums up the works, but it renders them much more unjust. And so just getting rid of them, and this is a first step, I get it, but a first step in offenses that really touch Indigenous, Black, and marginalized Canadians. And so I'm confident this will have a big impact, especially along with the possibility of conditional sentence orders. They're now back in the picture, and we can actually use sentences to help people, and use sentences to help society, and use sentences to help victims. I'm pretty confident that we've targeted a good package of offenses, and as I've committed to Senator Pate, I would be open to looking at the data and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just concerned because there are a good number of other ones that have already been deemed unconstitutional by courts across the country.
Yes, but only one, and that's included in this package, has been found unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in the Nur case. The other ones, there are conflicting decisions, both at the level of superior courts and at appellate courts. So this is the clear one.